could follow him at Allbright NFL on Twitter. That's at Allbright with 2 L's, NFL. Ben, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great. I'm doing great, man. And it's that time of the year where NFL free agency really starts to slow down and you start really diving deep with the pro days, getting ready for the draft. My first question to you is with the quarterbacks, because you know that's the sexy position. Everybody wants to talk quarterbacks. Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins, what is your personal evaluation of the two? And if you are the New York Giants or the Washington Redskins or, you know, the Cardinals, whatever team that's looking for a quarterback, who is number one on your draft board?
Well, I have Dwayne Haskins as the number one quarterback in his class. My evaluation of Kyler Murray appears to be significantly lower than what looks like the consensus evaluation on him. As far as Haskins goes, you know, he's got the body, he's got the archetype, he can make all the throws. He's accurate in the intermediate game, and those are things that you need out of a starting quarterback. You know, he's not very mobile, despite whatever nonsense Stephen A. Smith is trying to sell you. But he is a guy who, you know, can use his feet to manipulate the pocket, buy an extra little bit of time. He's certainly not going to take off and get chunk yardage for you or anything like that. I think if you're looking for a comparison, you know, you're probably looking at a guy like Jameis Winston. You know, forget the off field, but you know, on the field, you're probably looking at a similarity there. As far as Kyler Murray goes, you know, that's not my guy this year. I look at that, and you know, I know it was all over Baker last year, but I don't think Kyler and Baker are that much alike. You know, you go look at the tape. I think Kyler compares more favorably to Johnny Manziel, and that's something I think I would avoid. The small stature, the frenetic style of play, the things that they did at Oklahoma to set him up for success, widening the splits in the offensive line and dropping him deeper into a drop to have him see, are not things that are replicable at the NFL level. Widening the splits is just going to get you double A gap to death, and you know, dropping a guy deep into his drop. I think we've all seen a Mike Martz offense, and knows how often a quarterback's going to get sacked, you know, in those kind of situations. So I clearly have Dwayne Haskins as the top quarterback in this draft.
Interesting. Do you believe, because I think it's fair what you just said about Kyler Murray, because Lincoln Riley, I think, is an up-and-coming offensive mind and will be a great head coach if he ever does make the jump to the NFL. I think that's a fair assessment. Urban Meyer and Ryan Day at Ohio State, do you think they had a lot to do with the sudden surge of Dwayne Haskins?
You know, I don't think so. I think that, you know, talent shines through, and I think that great quarterbacks elevate the talent around them, regardless of scheme. And so I think that having an offensive mind like Day and Meyer didn't hurt. But I think, you know, a guy like Haskins doesn't really fit what Urban Meyer does. Urban Meyer likes those Tim Tebow-style quarterbacks, you know, a guy that can take up on you, stretch the defense vertically, horizontally, and with the quarterback's legs. Haskins isn't that guy. So, you know, I don't think he was really a fit for what they wanted to do. That said, he overcame that and, you know, and showcased his skill set. And, you know, I think he's somebody that, you know, is better suited for the pro game.
Are the New York Giants, we've heard tweets coming out that they met with Dwayne Haskins last night as far as having dinner and stuff like that, their brass. Are they really seriously considering taking Dwayne Haskins in the first round, or is this just a smokescreen? They're sticking with Eli. They're not drafting a quarterback this year.
Well, I think they're doing due diligence. I think you have to. I think they're out there trying to find out about the guy and, you know, and prepare themselves for every eventuality. I don't think they're going to be trading up for Dwayne Haskins. I think if he falls in their lap, that's a consideration there, but I don't think they're going to be trading up for him. Everything I had heard was that, you know, they were more enamored with particularly taking a defensive lineman there. With that first pick, you know, probably Montez Sweat, even with that heart condition. And then maybe looking quarterback with that second first-round pick if a guy like Daniel Jones was still sitting there available to fall into their lap. So, you know, I think Haskins is just an example of them doing due diligence. Is this the guy? Can he convince us when we sit down, or, you know, are we going to stick with our plan and move on to something else?
Great stuff. We're talking with Benjamin Allbright. You can follow him on Twitter at Allbright NFL with 2 L's, at Allbright NFL. He's a great follow. Really knows what he's talking about. I followed this man for the last couple years, and this is his time of the year, man. He is spot on with a lot of his evaluations. I do want to ask you this. Okay, so you're saying that what you're hearing is that the Giants might, you know, target quarterback with that second first-round pick. If they do not draft a quarterback in the first round this year, what is this saying to their fan base? Because the fans are looking at, okay, while we do respect Eli, and I don't speak for the majority of the fans, I'm just saying from the ones that I've talked to, while they respect Eli, they understand that you see what the Eagles did once they got Carson Wentz and how they kind of soared with the rest of their roster. You've seen with what happened with Baker Mayfield and the Browns. They want new blood at that quarterback position. If it's not this year, then when?
Well, I think you don't want to get desperate, and saddle yourself with the wrong guy. I think if you're going to do this, you got to be convinced that he's the guy. And, with Philadelphia, they were convinced Carson was the guy, and they got all the way up there to the number 2 pick to get him. With the Giants, Dave Gettleman's always been reticent to trade in the draft. He's always been a guy that kind of lets the draft come to him. I think that it doesn't signal to the fans that they're ignoring the position. I think it signals to the fans that, we've got a legend here who's competent, and what we're looking for is a sense of permanence. And we want to make sure that when we invest that pick, we invest it in the right guy so we don't get stuck with a situation like, for instance, the Cincinnati Bengals, where you get an Andy Dalton and you're stuck in quarterback purgatory for a decade, never really being great, but never really being bad.
Okay, let's switch gears back to Kyler Murray. Do you buy the whole Cliff Kingsbury Cardinals mock draft stuff? I mean, ever since the Combine, it seems like everybody has their mock draft for Kyler Murray going number 1 overall. I know how you feel about him personally as far as your evaluation, but do you buy that NFL circles really believe that the Cardinals might actually take Kyler Murray at the number 1 pick?
I think there are people that believe that, and it may very well happen. I can tell you I know for a fact they have not made a decision yet. Part of their deal, they just went to dinner with Kyler Murray last night in an effort to get to know him. They're still doing the legwork. They haven't even put Josh Rosen out on the market yet. So, people talking about Josh Rosen getting all these offers and this, that, and the other have no idea what they're talking about. He has not even been shopped yet. So, what the Arizona's trying to do is do due diligence, make sure they do everything right here, make sure they're not just favoring a guy that Cliff saw when he played in college and, happens to share the same agent, Eric Burkhart. I think that they're, they want to make sure they do this right, and I commend them for that.
Where did you have Josh Rosen as far as last year's draft ranks? Obviously, we didn't get a chance to talk last year, but if Josh Rosen was in this class, would he be your number 1 quarterback?
Yeah, he would be the number 1 quarterback in this draft class. And that's the thing. You go back and look at the tape last year. Everybody tries to say, "Well, Josh was terrible." Well, no, he wasn't. They were down to a 4th and in a lot of cases 5th string offensive lineman. Had nobody to throw to outside of Larry Fitzgerald. Had a terrible offensive coordinator, Mike McCoy, that they fired halfway through the season. For a first-time head coach who didn't know what he was doing, and Steve Wilkes. It was just a bad situation. And so if I'm the Arizona Cardinals, I'm saying, we traded up to get Josh Rosen for a reason. So why don't we take that first pick that we've got and apply it to one of the many holes on our roster instead of trying to fix a position that isn't necessarily broken already and still having those same holes?
Yeah, definitely agreed. As high as I am on Kyler Murray, I just think that you don't draft a quarterback in the first round 1 year just to take another one number 1 overall next year. The NFL doesn't work that way, and you don't give up on a guy, regardless of what I believe about Josh Rosen. You don't give up on a young quarterback with a lot of promise after 1 season. Okay, let's go back to the NFC East and the Philadelphia Eagles. What did you believe about the Dashawn Jackson reunion, and do you believe that he still has enough left in the tank to really help that offense next season?
Oh, I think so. And Deshaun's wanted to get back to Philly for a while. He never wanted to leave. That was all Chip Kelly. It wasn't Howie. That wasn't Deshaun. That was Chip Kelly. And so, I think having Howie back in charge of things, Chip's out of there, Deshaun can get back, and it looks like they're trying to get back some of the players, that were the heart and soul of that team a few years ago. I think it's a great move. I think Deshaun's still got plenty to offer, and I think it's going to work out pretty well.
When you look at the empty hole they still have at running back, obviously last year with Jay Ajayi getting hurt, Corey Clement getting hurt, Wendell Smallwood just wasn't the guy, neither was Josh Adams. The Eagles, are they still looking in free agency, do you believe, for a running back, or are they waiting for the draft, possibly for a guy like Jacobs, or maybe in the later rounds taking a chance on one of those later round guys who could kind of, fill out that rotation?
Well, I think it's both. They're in free agency. They're looking. Well, I say free agency. They're looking at Cleveland Browns running back Duke Johnson, trying to sniff around that a little bit, see if they can get him on the cheap. And then in addition to that, they'll be going to the draft, and I suspect Josh Jacobs will be the pick.
Really? I mean, I just spoke with Josh earlier, my co-host, about that, and he believes that that will be a little too late for Josh Jacobs to go. He believes that, he's moving up people's draft boards. Do you think the Eagles would have to trade up to get a chance at him, or could he fall down to them?
No, I think it'd be right there in their wheelhouse. His testing scores were not great, and that's causing people to maybe put a little pause on it and say, okay, well, Alabama's Alabama. You got the offensive line there. Is this a question of team dominance versus individual player performance, that kind of thing? And they'll go back to the tape and check. I don't think he's going to go that high, though.
When you look at the Washington Redskins, Ben, and they've added Landon Collins, they got Case Keenum, they re-signed Adrian Peterson, they got Eric Flowers. But to me, this is a team that has refused to really address their team. They won a bad division back in 2015, but other than that, they haven't been a playoff caliber team to me. Now, last year early they had success, but that's not sustainable when you got guys like Alex Smith and Adrian Peterson playing above their heads at that age. Is this a team that really needs to assess themselves and say, okay, maybe we need to rip off the Band-Aid and start over?
Well, I think you want to do that after this season. I don't think Jay Gruden's going to be back after this year regardless. I think that what they're trying to do this year is, give him the best that he can to succeed. And last year was really kind of the team built for that, but then injuries got in the way. For Jay Gruden and John Gruden, the offense that they run, a quarterback who is consistent, can deliver the ball accurately and doesn't turn it over is really the kind of quarterback they need, more of a point guard than, a big-time thrower or playmaker. And Alex was kind of that guy. And they were doing pretty well up until his injury. So, I think Washington's a team that's going to blow it up here in the coming year. I think they're just kind of loading up, making one run at it here while they can. But I suspect after this season they're going to blow it up.
Last but not least, the Dallas Cowboys. They really surprised me personally with how well their defense played all throughout the year. Their offense kind of came on late when they got Amari Cooper and the way that Zeke played. Now adding Randall Cobb, is this team ready to, take that throne away from the Eagles and say, this is our division, not yours, and we are here to stay? Or do you believe that Carson Wentz, how I do, that it's Carson Wentz's health that, provides who is really the best team in the NFC East?
Well, I think the answer to that question is both of them. I think that everything hinges on Carson Wentz's health, but also the Cowboys are going to be challenged for that. And I don't think they're done adding. They're very interested in Eric Berry. They may or may not get him right now. He wants to take a couple of the visits, make sure he's not settling for a below market deal. But they're very interested in Eric Berry, and that strong safety position is really kind of the last hole on that defense. They've got a very, very good defense. They need to fix the line after they had some defections and some legal issues, but. The linebacking core very solid, the secondary very solid. It's interesting to look at, the Cowboys as constructed. You look at them a decade ago, you look at them now, they were a very poorly constructed team with some great players about a decade ago. Now they're a very well-constructed team that has some great players, but it's not the same. Dak instead of Tony, that kind of thing. Dak still got some growing to do, still makes some boneheaded mistakes. When he gets into a rhythm, he can be dangerous, but, you get him out of that rhythm, it's tough to get him back on track. So if you're a team that's got a good enough defense to get after him early, you can really shake the whole thing up and beat that team.
Great stuff, great stuff. Benjamin Allbright. Follow him on Twitter at Allbright with 2 L's NFL on Twitter, at Allbright with 2 L's NFL on Twitter. Man definitely knows what he's talking about. Last question before I get you out of here, man. If you've got the number 1 pick in this draft, who are you taking, Ben?
Quinn Williams. All things being equal, I think he's the best talent in this draft. You can find edge rushers. It's a pretty loaded draft. You can find edge rushers a little later, but an interior disruptor like Quinn Williams is just so hard to come by. And I think that I would make him the number 1 pick.
Okay. There you go. Thank you for joining me again, Ben. I hope you have a great day, buddy.
Absolutely. Take care.